Puddle, danger in the magician's garden. Danger in the magician's garden. It was a fine, warm evening. The wide-awake mice were all out in the magician's garden. Uncle Maximus and Aunt Matilda were sitting on a tree root by the hollow tree when Jeremy came home with a sack full of nuts. Jeremy came home with a sack full of nuts. Where did you find these? Asked Uncle Maximus, helping himself to a nut. On the steps of the magician's house, said Jeremy. There are lots more. Bits of cheese, too, and cake crumbs. I think I'll go and see for myself, said Uncle Maximus. He climbed down from the tree root. I'll come too, said Aunt Matilda. I'll just put this sack inside, and then I'll come and show you the way, said Jeremy. Jeremy said, the nuts were on the steps of the magician's house. Jeremy left the sack in the big hole under the hollow tree, and then he set off with Uncle Maximus and Aunt Matilda towards the magician's house. Jeremy left the sack in the big hole under the tree. Jeremy led the way through the grass, climbing over rocks and running under bushes. Before they had gone very far, Uncle Maximus was out of breath. Isn't there an easier way to go? He panted. Yes, there is, said Jeremy, but this is the safest way. Safest? Cried Uncle Maximus. Do you mean that it's dangerous out here in the garden? Well, you don't know who might be about, said Jeremy. Jeremy led the way. I'm going back, said Uncle Maximus. I don't feel very well. Don't you want any cake crumbs? Asked Jeremy. Uncle Maximus looked very unhappy. Of course I do, he said rather crossly, but I can't get to the steps and back. I'm not well. I can't do it. You go home, Maximus, said Aunt Matilda. I'll go on with Jeremy and bring some crumbs back for you. I think I will go home, said Uncle Maximus. I don't feel at all well. I'm going back, said Uncle Maximus. Uncle Maximus went back to the hollow tree, and Jeremy went on with Aunt Matilda. Suddenly, a blackbird in a tree over their heads began to scold. Aunt Matilda stopped. What's that blackbird saying? She asked. I don't know, said Jeremy. He sniffed the air. Can you smell anything? He asked. There's a very strange smell, said Aunt Matilda. I don't like it. Nor do I, said Jeremy. Aunt Matilda stopped. At that moment, a big fox jumped out from behind a bush. He seized Aunt Matilda in his mouth. Jeremy leapt sideways behind some stones. He peeped out between the two of the stones and saw the fox standing there with Aunt Matilda in his jaws. A big fox jumped out. Jeremy was very frightened, but he wasn't going to run away if there was a chance of saving Aunt Matilda. He poked his head up over a stone. Put her down, he cried. You mustn't hurt anyone in the magician's garden. The magician said so. Put her down, cried Jeremy. The fox put Aunt Matilda down on the ground and held her there with his paw. He was planning to eat Aunt Matilda for supper, but he thought that if only Jeremy would come a little nearer, he might have two mice for supper, not just one. The magician said nothing to me. He said, I don't live in his garden. I live in the wood. The fox put Aunt Matilda down. He said, I don't live in the magician's garden. I don't care where you live, said Jeremy. I'll tell the magician. When the magician finds out that you've hurt Aunt Matilda, you'll be sorry. I'm a little deaf, said the fox. I can't hear what you say. Come nearer. Jeremy said, I will tell the magician. Two heads appeared over the bushes. Harry and Gita had been playing ball in the magician's garden. They were going home when they heard a noise, and they stopped to see what it was. Harry and Gita looked over a bush. They saw the fox. As they looked, the fox made a sudden leap towards Jeremy. Harry still had the ball in his hand. As quick as a flash, he threw it straight at the fox. "Get off!" he cried. "Get away!" "Get off!" cried Harry. "Get away!" The ball hit the fox in midair. It didn't hurt him, but it startled him. Jeremy ducked down behind some stones. The fox dropped to the ground. He saw Harry and Gita and ran off under the bushes. Harry and Gita chased after him. The fox saw Harry and Gita. He ran off under the bushes. Jeremy came out from behind the stones and ran to Aunt Matilda. She was struggling to her feet. Her dress was all torn and muddy, and she could scarcely stand. Aunt Matilda shook her head. She couldn't speak. Jeremy ran to Aunt Matilda. Jeremy helped her to limp across to the stones. "Wait here for a bit," he said. "You'll be quite safe here. Look, there's a little hole under this stone. We can hide in that." They crept under the stone and waited. They could hear Harry and Gita shouting a long way away. Jeremy and Aunt Matilda hid. They could hear Harry and Gita. The shouting stopped. Jeremy came out of the hole. The blackbird had stopped scolding and was down on the ground looking for worms. Jeremy sniffed the air. The fox had gone. Jeremy came out of the hole. The fox had gone. Jeremy went back to Aunt Matilda. "It's safe to go home now," he said. "I don't know if I can," whispered poor Aunt Matilda. "I'm almost too frightened to move." "We must go while it's safe," said Jeremy. "I'll go first." He crept out of the hole and Aunt Matilda limped after him. Jeremy went back to Aunt Matilda. "We must go home," he said. A few minutes later, the two little mice crept safely back down the mouse hole and under the hollow tree. The other mice were all there. They had heard Harry and Gita shouting and had run home as fast as they could. "I'll never go into the garden again," said Uncle Maximus when he heard what had happened. "Someone will have to go," said Aunt Jane. "We have to go out to find food, but we'll be very careful." "You have to be careful all the time when you're a real wood mouse," said Chestnut. The wide-awake mice were all at home in the hole under the tree. Harry and Gita came back through the garden looking for the mice, but the mice had gone. "They must be all right," said Harry. "They must have gone home." "We must tell the magician about that fox," said Gita. "Yes, we must," said Harry. "It's not safe for the mice with a fox in the garden." They went back into Puddle Lane. Harry and Gita looked for the mice, but the mice had gone. "We must tell the magician," said Gita.